don't know if this is a record, but it's
Are
unprecedented
we
for
actually
anything new.
live?
I think we are. I'm just waiting for the YouTube thing to come up so I can actually hit mute here. But yeah, it does look like we're live. I will quickly ensure that we are.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, it seems like we're okay.
yeah. Oof,
Oh,
craziness.
yeah. Just run that pre-roll ad. But yeah, I think we're live.
Oh, pre-roll that. Yeah.
So have you?
Sorry. Huh?
How have you been?
Oh, I've been good. How are
Good.
you?
Not too bad. What have you been up to?
Um, not much.
No,
What do we do?
you must be pumping out videos every day. No.
I am now at Tuesday and Thursday. A
That's
video
pretty
goes
quick.
out. Today, a video went out. It is among the worst performing videos I've put out in a while.
Okay. Okay.
But it's kind of a boring topic. But it was a topic that I need to do. It's just not that exciting.
What's the topic?
It's so I've started doing on Tuesdays um, a course on Olama, on everything you need to know to be a pro at Olama. Um, and today I did one that's just about installation. It's not an exciting topic. It's pretty quick and easy,
Right.
but people always ask, so it kind of needed to happen, but it's not exciting.
Gotcha.
But more exciting ones will come next week.
I think I understand where you're coming from though. So that your audience may also already have installed Olama,
Yeah,
et cetera, right?
yeah,
Yeah. But if you get enough,
exactly.
I think that stuff is necessary, and maybe it doesn't perform
Yeah,
very well, but perhaps it's like a lead up to something else.
and I might um, pull up next week's video to happen, maybe tomorrow or Friday, to kind of, just cut
I
deal with that.
yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Um,
especially
yeah,
when you expect it to hit like I don't know five
yeah.
six thousand views
I,
that kind of thing.
I didn't expect it, but it's nice to have more than, it's probably my eighth, 8 out of 10 best performing videos that I have.
Okay.
Except that 1 out of 10, I'm never sure what that means. 1 out of 10 most recent, or 1 out of 10 all
Right.
time. But yeah, it's not performing. I mean, it's if I was looking at it back in December, I would be ecstatic about
So your
these results.
expectations have been set higher, and as a
Oh,
result,
my expectations are so much higher than they ever were
I think
because
that's important though
I
to be a
used.
little bit self-aware, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, um, the video I put out on Thursday is now at, I don't know, 11, 12,000 views.
Nice.
Um,
There you go.
and that's kind of normal now for a lot of videos that I put out. Within a week, it'll be, 7, 8 to 10 to 12,000 views. And that's, kind of what I'm kind of expecting. And now, but in December, 50, 60 videos on the first day. Oh my God, mind blowing.
I've also heard that like it can depend on the time of day that you're dropping stuff or what
No.
other people have put up. No, that's not true anymore.
No, well, it depends. I mean, if you are only looking at the first, you only care about the first 5 hours,
Right.
yeah, the time that you put the video out matters. But if you are looking at it a week, like the first, how is it perform the first 5 days? Um, you're not going to be able to figure out based on performance of the video whether it was put out at 10 a.m. or 5 p.m.
Right.
It all blends together because the people that were going to watch at 10 a.m. will watch 10 a.m. the next day. They're still going to watch it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I'm trying to think. There was I think it was Flickr who would have some weird things where at midnight is when the stats reset, and it looked
mm,
like their algorithm would track the amount of time for you to get to like a certain amount of engagement, and based on
hmm
that would like further promote your
right.
content as long as everything was on the up and up, and then because of that it would kind of
hmm
snowball from there. But that's like one naive algorithm, I guess. Like when
right.
there's the time reset kind of thing. And yeah, I guess that's
Yep.
the question that maybe or the assumption I still have in my head is that there's like a time window where if you put it in at a certain time, it can like ride that wave, that kind of thing. But that may no longer
Hmm.
be the case, or not be the case with YouTube, which is a
Yeah,
completely different
I don't
platform.
think it is on YouTube specifically.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah.
Maybe
I
maybe the
actually joined
algorithm is
a
tweaking.
joined a group that tries to help folks, do better at YouTube, and
Oh, cool.
it's an interesting one because most of these kind of courses or groups or people, and we kind of mentioned this a time or two ago,
Hmm.
they want to charge you lots of money for their advice, and it turns out most of what they're saying is either garbage or just what everybody else is saying. I get so many of their emails in my email box inbox, um, and but these two guys, one of them's got a channel called Internet Anarchist, I think. Kind of like CoffeeZilla and other types of, exposing scams.
Right.
And he's gotten a lot of, I don't know, he's about a million subscribers.
Oh, wow.
Him and somebody else who also has this, pretty big audience. And they're just making this chat as well as courses available for free.
That's awesome.
They're not getting anything out of it.
That's awesome. I like that kind
Wow,
of
they're
sort
probably
of
getting
like,
something.
well, fair enough, but maybe clout
Yeah,
or what have you. But I like that
yeah.
community approach specifically because it's like what is it? Like the tide that raises all ships or whatever. So as long as you
Mm-hmm.
get good content, the question is like, if
Right,
is there a like a technique or something to get the content to the people? Because I think at the end of
right.
the day, like if you don't have good content, it's not going to go far at all. But if
Yeah,
you've got something that's worthwhile to some people, then the
yeah.
question is how do you get it in front of their eyes, that kind of thing. So
Right.
I kind of like that, honestly. I miss that
Yeah.
community of helping each other. That I don't know. Maybe it warms my heart a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're doing these kind of videos, are you worried about because we've heard recently that I don't know some of these larger companies are perhaps training their models on
Mm-hmm.
like maybe subtitles or transcripts or
Right.
something like that from videos. Is this a concern to you at all, or is this just sort of like part and parcel as part of the platform?
I'm making these available, and if somebody wants to, I think for anybody to say they want to post videos for the world to see, well, the world except
Except
for
bots,
this one particular
right?
kind of viewer, that's ridiculous. I mean, you're making it available on YouTube. If it abides by YouTube's terms and observe it, whatever, it's not. It's out of my control. If I wanted to control who is watching it, I would put it on a site where can control who can watch it.
Right, right, like a Vimeo or
I
some
don't have any
hosting
control.
or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
fair enough. The other
but
question
then
I've
that
got.
comes
Yeah,
with
go ahead.
additional costs. I mean, hosting video
Oh yeah, it's
and
not
being able to
trivial.
stream it out, it's expensive.
Very,
So, I mean, the
very
fact that
good
YouTube
luck serving
is,
10,000 views of videos for free, right? That's not
yeah,
easy.
yeah. I mean, they take 60% cut or whatever, maybe a
Right,
lot more for
right,
the
right, right,
advertising dollars. They deserve it. I mean, that's a big job that they're doing.
right.
Most people think, oh, it's terrible that they're taking so much money for doing nothing. It's like they're doing a whole lot
Yeah, I
on
think
the
there's a certain
infrastructure side.
scale, like a scale larger than that, maybe, where it's more
Sure.
important for you to serve your own media. I'm trying to think. There's like a management company that runs BTS, a big Korean company, for
Mm,
example, that does have like their own media platform and things like that. And I'm sure they're cloud
yeah.
hosted, but they wanted to make sure that they had a platform in order to serve
Yeah.
music videos or music or what have you, or
Right.
sell merch without necessarily having to get a cut to somebody. But we're talking about one of the most popular bands in the world, kind of thing, like a
Right.
Taylor Swift sort of
Right.
phenomenon that's got their own media group to handle this.
Yeah.
But that's a scale that's like I'm not going to say YouTube scale, but like you're at that realm where it's a lot more difficult to think about the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully, you get to that
Yeah.
point where you can self-host
And
and it makes economic sense,
I mean, there's other platforms you can use that
right?
host it that you get more control over, but then you pay for. Like, um, there's Vimeo where
Right,
you pay and you get a little bit more control.
right,
And then there's the platform that I don't know was being used at Datadog. I don't know if it's still being used. I really liked it because you had a lot more control over what happens. At the end of the video, on YouTube, you see a bunch of possible places you could go watch afterwards. And for a Datadog video, maybe the next video is something from
Splunk.
Honeycomb or from,
Yeah, yeah,
some other
of
competitor,
course.
um, and you want to be able to control what the user sees afterwards. You can't do that with YouTube, but you can do it with platforms like Wistia, um,
Definitely.
and a great Boston startup.
I didn't know they
And
were from Boston. That's awesome.
they are from Boston. They're from what's the square? Anyway, there's I in fact I had a long email kind of conversation like that lasted for maybe even a decade with the founder, and finally we met up for coffee once when I was based in Boston. Actually, I might have still been based in Amsterdam, but I just happened to be by.
That's cool.
Um, and yeah, Brendan was great. In fact, my other connection to Wistia is just about 10 years ago,
Hmm.
10 years and a couple of months, is when I got the offer from Datadog. I don't know if I mentioned that on here.
No.
Um, and the person who connected me to Datadog, the kind of headhunter, recruiter, worked for Index, not Index, but OpenView Ventures,
Oh, maybe I
one of the
have. My
early,
apologies. Yes.
yeah. And so it was, and that person left OpenView, is now doing recruiting or HR at Wistia.
Wow, that's really
Um,
cool.
so yeah,
It's a small world, eh?
yeah, yeah.
So, is there anything in the news that I've missed? I see. I just did a quick scan here. It looks like OpenAI is starting to roll out that her like. I'm putting quotes around her here, like similar to the her like feature.
Mm,
I think that's as of 3 hours ago. It's oh, what's it called? GPT Chat GPT Plus
hmm.
has the GPT
Oh,
4o
the BL
voice.
ability to respond in voice. Okay.
Yeah, I think what do we call this? Multimodal, essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah.
With any voice except Scarlett Johansson.
Or like hired a voice actress that sounds very, very similar to them. After asking them, yeah, very, very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
I'm assuming that the voice has been fixed. I don't know. That was my guess.
yeah.
It's time to
Either
fix it.
one of the parties got some money
This
or something.
this is something got fixed.
Yeah.
The other piece of news that I saw, and listen, I don't like to talk on U.S. politics, politics in general, let alone U.S. politics, but it looks like Mr. Musk here may have reshared, probably by mistake, a fake video of Kamala Harris saying
Mistake.
something. Listen, I'm trying not to judge. Again,
By
not
mistake,
my
yes.
politics. But I think the question is like, what can we do to like enact or enforce a law about deepfakes that are being used for political views at the very least, right? I think this is
Right.
something that should be addressed. I thought there was something, but maybe Twitter is like this is possibly just for TV ads. I don't know, but I was sure there actually was already a law about deepfakes and political attack ads. But
Yeah,
what do you
that
do?
sounds right.
It does sound
But
right.
when the person who runs the platform, maybe they're able to get by
Maybe
certain
that's what I'm trying to
issues.
hint at.
Yeah.
But I think this. I mean, listen. Maybe it's a slip up. They reshared it by mistake, what have you. I think it's indicative, though, of a problem that's only going to get worse. Is kind of what
Yeah.
I was getting at. I'm trying to give the
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt here, as hard as that may be. But I do
Yeah.
think that this is going to become more and more problematic, especially if somebody can just use this like retail tool to help them do that for them. Or I think 11 Labs is generally the person, or sorry, the company
Right.
that's involved in this tech because it's quite good tech. Sorry, involved in
Yeah.
this kind of thing. But yes.
Yeah. I mean, is that any different than, is it a lot different than just a politician just making up stories about their competition,
Right.
which has happened in political campaigns forever?
Absolutely. Or hiring lookalikes to make quote unquote
Sure.
satire, comedy
Yeah.
kind of stuff, which everybody
Yeah.
knows that that's a lookalike, but also using this
Right.
as a stand in to make a point.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is good. I think in Canada things are a little bit different about like political attack ads. I don't think we're allowed
Oh,
to do them. So, like, say anything bad about the opposition, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't
oh, really?
happen here either. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not great. Like regardless of fakery or what have you.
Right.
That's my understanding, but also I live here, and it certainly does happen.
Yeah.
Just not that common.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. This
Yeah.
is the
I mean,
future
it's been
where
amazing to see. I mean, Kamala Harris I mean, she wasn't even. I mean, yeah, she was vice president. She would be the next vice president if that party won.
right.
And so, but nobody's really focused on her. And now, what, a week later, she's raised $200 million. And something like a quarter or half of the people donating have never donated to a political campaign before in their lives,
Oh wow.
just in the last week. So, I mean, whoever you want, I mean, those are pretty impressive numbers.
Trying to see here. Who's the person who plays Kamala Harris on Saturday Night Live? Because I think I
I
saw a
don't know.
clip of them on Hot Ones. Um, just in character kind of thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, oh shoot. I'm trying to think of the person's name here. But basically, she went on in character, playing Kamala Harris on Hot Ones. Just trying to find the name here. I should know. I'm so terrible at actresses' names. Oh,
I'm
it's
awful.
Maya Rudolph. My apologies. I saw a clip of her.
Really?
It's probably just a
Huh.
joke on Hot Ones as Kamala Harris.
Okay.
The clip in particular was, I guess, at the point of no return. Basically, Maya Rudolph put milk in the beer and drank both together in order to deal with the heat. Anyways, this whole thing's just like
Uh-huh.
a joke, obviously, but I thought it was pretty funny. So it's not my
Wow.
checkout, but perhaps I should watch it myself. But Hot Ones with Maya Rudolph, I think was pretty funny.
Cool.
The other thing I noticed here, and this is maybe what I'm trying to get at in terms of like an underlying theme, is that there's some people now approaching generative AI with caution. One of those companies is Apple, who say that the I'm using a lot of air quotes today, but the Apple Intelligence features of iOS 18 are going to miss the release of that actual operating system. So the beta does
Hmm.
have those features in there. So again, the ones that could reach out to ChatGPT if you wanted to,
Right.
or not cancel out kind of dialogue. But it looks like they're going to pause. I would
Interesting.
assume this has something to do with the EU. I could be wrong, but we'll see what happens. Maybe there's something else happening
Right.
in the US that we're not sure of. But I do like the fact that
Hmm.
people are now trying to slow down a bit and like think about the implications, or maybe
Right.
the user want, the user need, and what we're actually addressing.
Right.
Because it does feel like a lot of companies have been a little early to ship products that may or may not be products, basically. So they're kind of
Yeah.
something that's either
Yeah.
not useful or doesn't serve the market, or is
Right.
more of like putting a flag in the sand kind of thing, saying like, yeah, we got here,
Right.
whereas people aren't going to use it. The other one was in sort of the good news area. There's an article in the New York Times about AI weather forecasts specifically for hurricanes actually helping out here
Hmm.
in terms of prediction models, which I
Okay.
think is we get a good news story as well. So I
Yeah.
I think I talk a lot about like that trough of disillusionment, but it feels like we're getting closer to people's expectations outrunning what we can actually provide, which is
Right.
good because that disillusionment will then mean that the things that come out of this will actually be useful.
Right.
So it seems like we're in that little trough for just now where we thought the promise was going to be amazing. It's not. We're starting to think about the
Right.
energy consumption and maybe thinking about like private services and paying for them and stuff like
Right.
that. And I think this is where we're going to start seeing people more interested in the like self-hosted, being able to
Right.
control a
Yeah.
little bit more like what's going in, what's going out, that kind of
Right.
stuff. So anyway, all this to say, I think these kind of road bumps are good, or speed bumps are good.
Yeah.
You want this kind of pushback. So
It's interesting about the AI and weather prediction and hurricane.
right.
Um, I mean,
Have you done any of
one
that
of
in the
the
past?
with well, I mean, with all the advancements and massive computing resources that are spent on, like at NOAA for
Right.
long-term weather prediction,
Right.
the state of the art is being able to predict 5 days, 6 days,
The
and
state of
everything
the art
after
is like the
is like
Farmer's
3 days.
Almanac, which somehow
Yeah,
still sometimes beats Noah.
yeah, yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
And going past 3 to 5 days
It's so
is
hard.
all is could be anything, and um, just because there's so many factors involved, are you looking at all the factors that are important? And if there's a solution that can look at and find things that nobody expected to see in the data, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's maybe where we're at is like perhaps
Yeah.
the prediction model that you get from Gen AI isn't accurate, but combining that with other things that you have allow you
Hmm.
to figure out where it is.
Merge the AI with the farmer's almanac, and you get an extra
Yeah,
day.
the Farmer's Almanac is kind of weird. Maybe because I grew up as a farmer, I kind of like the story. But my understanding is the only reason it's more accurate is that it goes back further. That's like
Yeah.
legitimately the reason
Yeah.
it can show cycles a little bit more
Yep.
easily than our record keeping, and
Yeah.
guaranteed at some point in time we will outpace it. But my understanding
Yeah.
is we're not there yet. But we're talking
Yeah.
about so hurricanes in this case. I'm not sure if the almanac's that great at like natural disaster kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, I've lived in Japan, and I understand that like seismic activity is another thing that's really important for prediction. And then
Right.
having worked in the Maritimes and sold, I don't want to say supercomputers, but like the first Athlon 64-bit processors to help with like wave
Uh-huh.
prediction, at least in the
Yeah.
Maritimes, was interesting in that what they wanted to do was collect as much data as possible, and ingest was their biggest issue, was to actually
Right.
be able to ingest the data and then make something out of it. But ingest was non-trivial back in the day. We're talking about like early 2000s kind of thing. So
Yeah.
whatever was state of the art then is going to be completely different now. Whereas I think ingest is probably solved, and maybe data
Yeah.
manipulation is one of those things that we're still working on. But at least the output of those models, assuming that the ingest is clean, should be better, as
Right.
well as marrying that with Gen AI models might be good. I don't know if you've
Right.
ever used like RStudio models or anything like that, but there are prediction models. There's like a five in
Oh
one
yeah.
that I've used just for funsies. But like again, this is maybe me deploying something that somebody else made. But my understanding is being able to have multiple prediction models and choosing between them, like this scenario could happen, but also maybe this one's at
Right.
20% kind of thing, allows you to have a better like risk assessment essentially, which
Mm-hmm.
allows you to be better prepared, which is good.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard about the big fire we had here recently, for example, in Jasper. Do
No,
you know about Jasper in the Rockies?
I do know Jasper.
Okay, so
I've been
Jasper
to
is almost
Jasper.
completely burnt down. The fire started, I think, close to midnight, and most people got like a 2 hour notice, if not like a 1 hour notice, saying like pack up
Oh
your
my
stuff,
God.
you got to go. Like you didn't expect to be in the fire area this
Right.
summer, but here we go. And most of the city has burnt down. People still can't get back to their homes, but
Oh my God.
it's
No,
a
I had
mess.
no idea.
But the same thing, like there they saw it, they knew it was happening, and then immediately realized that it's out of control
Right.
and tried to reach out, but like 2 hours isn't a lot of notice.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, went to Jasper 30 years ago, um, with my parents, and stayed at some cabins that and woke up one morning and
I'm feeling you're
we
talking
had a
about the
whole bunch
cabins
of
across
moose.
the yeah, moose and elk everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah, like on our porch.
yeah, it sounds about
Yeah,
right. Were the cabins like
yeah,
right across the road from the city because those ones are pretty
yeah,
popular? Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. We saw coyotes and bears like in front of the cabins, like right next to
yeah,
them, walking
yeah,
along the road.
yeah,
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a very cool city, but yeah, it's a total shame.
yeah.
But at least they did get,
Oh my
I
God.
think, like a heads up. But again, not a great heads up. But they got
Yeah,
some heads up. So I do feel like the prediction models here will at least help people. Like, hey, worst case scenario
right.
is you need to leave in half an hour, so leave
Yeah,
in half an hour because it could be really
right.
bad, which is good to hear.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a total
Wow.
shame. This is like a
Yeah,
national treasure, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. I went fly fishing. First time I ever went
Mm.
fly fishing was in Jasper, and it was great. What a great trip. But God, wow.
Yeah, the bigger place to do it. The only other thing I had in the news was Stratechery. Stratechery
Yeah.
is like a tech blog. How can I explain this? It's written by Ben Thompson, who is kind of like I guess we could describe him as a former analyst, or maybe still an analyst
Mm-hmm.
who has a tech blog, basically. What I thought was pretty cool, he was trying to cover essentially the kernel access that we were talking about last week in terms of the CrowdStrike
Okay. Yeah.
problem that caused the Microsoft outage that took down airlines, et cetera, et cetera. what I really liked, and what I really liked about that Fireship video is kind of talking about the way drivers work in Windows, which is it's
Hmm.
sad that we've reached this point, but the fact that we're talking about user space and kernel space in the
Right.
public in something like this, which is not normally like
Right.
a tech blog kind of thing. It's normally about the industry as a whole, but just talking about what it means to be pervasive and installed on a lot of
Hmm.
computers like this, and what happens when like maybe you're not testing your updates, maybe you're not rolling
Right.
them out properly, and then maybe when your clients receive them, they're also maybe deploying them all at once. So the fact that there's a
Yeah.
multi-pronged problem here in terms of the trust of the updates. At the same time, the push is to make sure that everything is updated on a regular basis because of
Right.
security. So what does that mix look like between the two? So it it's tough. He also does cover
Yeah.
the Microsoft standpoint too, and again, like I don't mean to bash Microsoft at all. I think in this case, it looks like they tried to do the right thing, but had a backlash from
Yeah.
most of their vendors saying that no, they prefer to just continue on the path of, I don't know if it's writing DLLs or what have you, and
Yeah.
attaching them to the kernel. But it actually is a pretty good article. If you've not subscribed to Stratechery, this one is free, which is nice. I'll send you a text
Yeah.
message. You click on the text and you can
Yep.
read it. But it is a pretty good read that I think is
Yeah.
largely unbiased, which is actually kind of nice.
Yeah. I yeah, my initial reaction to the whole thing before I knew how it was working was, wait, how would, I mean, shouldn't the
Right.
folks at any
The
given
ops
company,
problem.
well, no, I
Roll
mean,
this out
shouldn't they
slowly.
see, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
get the update,
Yeah.
deploy it on one machine or a few machines, see if it works. Okay, great. Spread it out
Test
further,
group.
see if
Yep.
that works. Spread it out further, and then you eventually hit all the machines. Not, but I didn't realize these are all configured to all update all at the same time
Yeah.
from the mothership rather than from these,
Yeah.
something that more local.
And mine, like, so one of the companies I worked for was a CrowdStrike client. And my understanding is you could actually set up groups for
Oh
deployment.
yeah,
But, like, I'm going to say it wasn't easy. And I'm pretty good at clicking around GUIs and stuff like that.
yeah,
And again, this is like 3 years ago, 4 years ago at this
yeah,
point in time. But it did feel like the culture was definitely to like select all and deploy as soon as
yeah.
possible kind of thing. Set to
Right,
auto updates, have them reboot whenever they want, just to make sure
yeah,
that if there is a 0 day or something like
right,
that you can deploy really quickly. And I think
yeah,
people get used to this not being a problem, but of course, as soon as it is, it's an issue. The other thing that sort of came out of the woodwork is that actually their testing platform was giving back false
mm-hmm,
positives or like false negatives, I guess,
mm,
saying that there are no problems with this test without
right,
necessarily testing the update, which is, I mean, yet another problem. It doesn't excuse
yeah,
anything, but it
right,
is yet another sort of wrinkle in terms of like how did we actually
yeah.
get here, which isn't great. Not
Wow.
not great. Um, one more
Oh,
thing for you.
ah,
Sorry, I forgot. Was the Stack Overflow Dev Survey? Did you read that? We're putting you right to task
no.
today. Okay, so I did not either, which is good. So maybe we could talk about it next week.
Yeah.
What I did watch though is the because I love Fireship, unfortunately, the unhappy
Hmm.
developer crisis sort of synopsis, I guess, of the dev survey. So
Uh-huh.
the conclusion here is that like looking at the survey, it looks like most people would like to change jobs ASAP, which is like not uncommon. This year,
Right.
it the prevailing sentiment is that most people are unhappy in their jobs and would like to get a new one, which
Hmm.
is I don't know if it's disturbing or sad or what. There've been
Right.
layoffs and probably people are knee jerk reaction or rebounding to whatever company will hire them as well. So there's a bit of like cultural stuff
Hmm.
going on at the same time. On the other hand, when I talk to people in the industry, what I get a lot of the time is that yeah, they feel I don't want to say like lonely or anything, but like dissatisfied in life and this job is not helping them kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is just so soul sucking, you know what I mean? And that's sort of the tact that he takes in talking about this. Like
Yeah.
what is the job? What do you do every day? How would that attribute to your unhappiness? Like if you're largely
Right.
sitting in a chair coding for maybe
Right.
12 hours a day, knowing most of us, like you're probably going to get
Yeah.
stuck in on something for 12, 14
Yeah.
hours a day, 5 days a week, maybe 6 if you're passionate about what you're doing. and you lose sight of your life goals. You're
Right.
looking at
Yeah.
your work goals and not thinking about like your health or I don't know, exercise,
Hmm.
sometimes eating. I'll definitely skip meals when I'm coding.
Yeah.
It's difficult to remember to like I don't know, shower, eat, shave, like
Yeah.
all the routine kind of stuff. And I think he did a pretty good job of covering what that looks like, at least being self aware of
Yep.
what those problems are, and maybe a little bit about how we can address them, as well as some shots fired at PHP, which I thought was pretty funny. So, like, I think the salient point was most people assume that if you get PHP programming skills, you get a lot of money, like,
Hmm.
I don't know, the PayPal mafia or what have you. But again, PHP was cool back in the day, and there are a lot of PHP devs
Right.
now, so there's more competition. So the actual salary is pretty low on the PHP side, but the top of the list was Erlang, and Erlang is
Mm.
got to be one of those languages where I think when I see it, it's generally like cool stuff in enterprise, maybe because it's going to be like that's JVM
Yeah.
compatible or
Yeah.
something. But yeah,
Yeah.
Erlang is one of those languages where I feel like if you're using it, you're doing something pretty different. Like there's a
Right.
reason you've picked up. Like you don't
Right.
pick up Erlang in for fun, basically,
No.
possibly in anger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the third on the list, I think, was C++. Still there,
Hmm.
which is like not an easy language. It's
Yeah.
certainly got
No.
its wrinkles, but it definitely has install
Yeah.
base, and it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. So like again, just looking at the like the stats here. So we got like 65,000 coders. 20% of those are from the U.S. Um, of those people, almost 50,000 shared their salaries. So we do have a probably pretty good idea of their
Hmm.
salaries. And then yet again, if we're thinking about like who's answering this, so like 76% is from the Stack Overflow community, which tells you
Right.
like this is a certain ilk or a certain type
Yeah.
of programmer. And maybe that type of programmer is burnt out because they're doing a lot of like community goodwill, a lot of outreach, a lot of answering questions on Stack Overflow, which frankly can be hard. There's a lot going on. But I think that the big thing is that people are, it looks like, yeah, trying to get out of the job that they currently have. I think just some stats here on like hybrid remote. So like we got 40% hybrid, 40% remote, and 20% in person, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know if I've seen that mix before. And then in
Right.
terms of company size, like the lion's share was 20 to 500 employees, so smaller companies as well, where you maybe
Mm-hmm.
like if you're thinking about a company that's 500 in size, imagine how many developers they have.
Yeah.
I would assume that it's not all developers, so you might be
Right.
wearing two or three hats. So I can
Yep.
kind of see like when you think about that and then you're looking at the numbers, you can kind of see like, hey, you're hybrid or you're remote and there's no connection with your coworkers, that kind of stuff. What does that look like?
Hmm.
All this to say, I'm
One
very
thing
happy
about
where I am right now, just in case
yeah.
we're reading that. But like,
Yeah.
I do find it interesting when I try to relate to the community what they're going through.
Right. I think one thing that a lot of these surveys skip over, I haven't looked at this one at all, but
Hmm.
about like job satisfaction, one of the things that they miss a lot of the time is not what is the job or what are you excited about the job, but um, do you like your manager?
Right.
I mean, there's so
It
many,
seems to be a massive factor, right? And job satisfaction.
yeah. I mean, so many. I mean, in tech, if you're really good, you get turned into a manager, which you might not
It's
be
a
really
different
good
job.
at. Um, and I know early on, like way at very close to the beginning, right when developers started getting promoted, when the kind of career ladders just started getting formed at Datadog, um, like 6 months later, the what's that glass ceiling, glass door, whatever that
Oh,
the
glass
like
ceiling.
yeah, the like places where ex-employees can review the companies that they left. The reviews of Datadog were terrible, because a lot of people
Oh, there's
all of a sudden
blind.
had a manager
Have we talked about
that
blind before? Was it blind?
no,
Oh, okay. So
no,
it's probably glass door. Glass ceiling was what I was thinking about. It's probably glass door, but we should talk about blind as
okay,
well. I'll put a pin in that for now. Go ahead.
and and people were like very upset with their manager and left. And then soon after that, after maybe a year of these kind of really negative reviews, there was more training put in place. There was the idea of that career ladder, including not only people who want to go to the management route, but want people who want to be
Right.
the
The
still
IC.
individual contributor route.
Yeah.
Um, and so you could still, go up the ranks in either of these two options.
Right.
Which I think, I mean, Datadog had to suffer through the really bad
Right.
before they realized, oh, that's important.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say, having
and
been in like high growth companies before, I'm
yeah,
not gonna say that, like, I'm not excusing anybody, but this, I have seen this before. It's like lack of planning in terms of like where
hmm
do they go, kind of thing. What does that
yeah,
maturity level look, or what does that ladder look like?
right,
And Datadog doesn't seem to be alone. Again, I don't
yeah,
represent my
yeah,
company, just opinion
yeah,
as an employee. I will say though that this is one of those issues that, like, I've been in the industry over 20 years at this point in time. Like, it certainly comes up time and time again,
yeah,
because the industry as a whole, like, if like outside of tech in a company, there's tech
right,
within bigger companies. Seems that is the culture, is like your
right,
upgrade is to management level, kind of thing. It's been
right,
like that for a long time. Maybe it's a lesson we
yeah,
need to unlearn. But also, there's rarely space for like those staff or principal positions. For example, even at Samsung, which was an R&D office for a larger company,
hmm
the R&D office itself only had like a quota of certain titles that they could have, and they couldn't have too many seniors or senior twos or staff,
mm,
or maybe depending on the site size, like there wasn't room for a
right,
principal or like a fellow, if you want to go any further. Where if you're looking at like somebody who's come from Cisco or IBM, they may
right,
be used to a certain title and a certain salary range, but at the same time want to
right,
do work for your company. So it's difficult. Like, in a vacuum, a lot of times it makes sense, but unfortunately, the market as a whole is not, and has titles like this and tenure and
right,
salaries that are involved. So I think some of that is Datadog learning, some of that Samsung learning, or other companies that I work for. The other is the market itself, like of other companies learning at the same time too, and people going from one to the other, and how that culture can kind of spread. I don't know.
right,
All this to say that it seems like a lot of companies are kind of on that maturity scale where they
yeah,
haven't hit like the blue chip stock kind of employee. What is it, like, just number of employees that allows you to have
hmm
your staff, your fellows, your senior twos,
right,
or what have you. Not to
right.
excuse anybody, and again, my opinions are
No,
my own,
yeah.
but that's
I
that's
mean,
how it looks like from the outside.
yeah, I've, I've had, and one of the things that you learn as you go through your career
Hmm.
is, you realize after working for a few deadbeats that you hate working for, you realize, well, the interview isn't just them interviewing me;
Yeah, you
it's
got to
me
interview them.
interviewing my
Yeah,
manager.
yeah.
Am I going to work well with this person?
Right. What does my
I
career
had
progression
some,
look like at your
yeah,
company, kind of thing, is a good question
because
to ask.
that definitely has a huge impact on whether you're going to succeed at that company.
Yeah. Yeah. As
And I
someone
always go back
who
to my
who
two
like,
managers at Microsoft.
yeah, like, I left a tech lead position to become an
Yeah,
IC, or like intermediate basically, at
yeah,
Datadog, but also the company sizes were completely different. So
yeah,
when I worked at Caterpillar,
oh
it's
yeah,
just like a cog in a wheel kind of thing, which is what
yeah,
Fireship talks about a little bit. It's like, for some
yeah,
people, you're just a cog, unfortunately, and like the
right,
entirety of your career is just going to be
yeah,
a cog. And I think they said, like, or the example of the code that you're gonna write is like, catch exception, throw exception.
right.
It's like that this is what you're gonna write until the end of days.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's like catch
yeah,
problems and then throw an error. Like, these are the most
right,
important bits. But yeah, I totally agree in that it does. Yeah, there's just different people, different
yeah,
levels, different
yeah,
companies, and sometimes it's like you got to realize that you may not only be in the wrong seat on the like wrong seat on the bus, but also the wrong
right.
bus. You
Wrong
got to get off
bus.
the
Yeah,
bus and pick another,
yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I think another conclusion in there, just to like prove that point, is that most people, their tenure is like 1.5 to 2 years at these large tech firms, and they typically
hmm
bounce around quite a bit in order to get
Yeah,
raises. And that is, it's almost entirely down to managers, as far as I can tell, like the
yeah,
immediate manager. And some of that can be
yeah.
solved by like skip level meetings, so meeting with your manager's
Right.
manager, meeting with people who are like a rank below you, what have you, just to
Yeah,
like help that culture kind of like work up and down the levels.
yeah,
But again, if you don't have that culture of meeting, like having those skip level meetings, starting that up as a grunt is going to be difficult. So it's more of
Hmm.
something that has to be top down.
Yep.
And again, maybe it's still just easier to switch jobs. So unfortunate. I hate to see this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think maybe exposing this in such a popular channel, where realistically, will maybe help people be a little bit more self-aware and hopefully not just
Right.
leave their job and pick another one because it's easier, but also
Right.
maybe work on the fix. Anyways, Stack Overflow developer survey, worth a read. I just breezed through it, but I did breeze through it with that in mind, and I think
Hmm.
it sort of paints a picture that maybe we need to think about career dev and personal dev and yeah, a
Hmm.
little bit more than we do. I hate to see the burnout stuff happen because it certainly
Yeah.
happened to me
Yeah.
and it's going to happen to other people as well. Some good
So
news.
yeah.
Now that we're done like offloading all the bad news, so
Hmm.
I think I've ranted about US streaming services in the past, like how you can get one movie on Netflix, but then like the
Oh
second
yeah.
and third might be on something else. What I
Yep.
didn't realize is that we have a different problem in Canada, which is the same, but all of the services have different licenses, different content.
Mm.
And this ended up culminating in my partner signing up to Paramount Plus on Prime in order to get access to some series that she wanted to watch. I think like South Park was on there, there's a few other things, but
Uh-huh.
while she was in there, I rediscovered Cheers. Do you remember Cheers? I think she was
I,
watching
I
Frasier.
totally.
Yeah, I think she was watching
Yeah.
Frasier actually, and she's like, it said somewhere that Frasier's like a spin-off of this other show, Cheers. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I think you knew that. Like, like we talked about that
Yeah.
a little while ago. And she's like, oh, I've never seen Cheers. And I was like, oh, we gotta watch Cheers. So I watched the first episode again yesterday, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it's not cringy. Like there's ashtrays in the bar, for example,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of funny, and like all the decor is kind of late '70s or early
Yeah.
'80s. Like things are definitely at a time period.
Yeah.
There's like a rotary dial phone in the bar as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of phenomenal, honestly, in terms of like it's
Yeah.
a little time capsule. But also they've rescanned the film, so it's like you can
Oh really?
see Sam Malone sweating, for example, as he's acting in the
Wow.
first pilot, which is really kind of like you
Oh
can
my
see
God.
beads of sweat. It's amazing. So
Wow.
he must have been quite nervous, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
so cool. Also, Rhea Perlman is hilarious. I'd
Yeah.
forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. So I've only watched one episode, but if you hadn't seen Cheers before, it's at least worth watching the pilot and in terms of like seeing
Yeah.
what TV used to look like and
Yeah.
how quick the delivery of the jokes are compared to now. Like like if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss the jokes. They fly very fast, and it's all placed in
Yeah.
a bar where people are kind of talking over each other a little bit. So it's almost like being in a room with family where everybody's
Yeah.
kind of making jokes and doing their
Yep.
thing. But you got to be quick witted to not only catch the jokes
Yeah.
but like repost or say something to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was amazing to me. I feel like Paramount Plus is it's some weird thing in Canada in terms of what it contains because I think in the US it contains HBO now, but in Canada we've got something called
Mm.
Crave that does, so it's very confusing. When I went to look up what
Yeah.
Paramount Plus includes, I had to be very careful to
Right.
look at the Canadian one, not the US, because the licensing's
Oh,
way
okay.
different. But it is awesome. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
movies. Yellowstone's in there. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen like 1883 or the other spin-offs. I've only seen
I
the
saw
spin-offs.
one of the prequels, something,
Yeah.
which was pretty
Yeah.
good,
Right?
but
So good.
yeah.
I still haven't seen
Yeah.
Yellowstone, so I'm looking forward to watching that as well.
Yeah.
So that's my
Um,
recommendation for this week.
yeah, Cheers. I mean, it's in Boston. The bar, the actual
Right.
bar is in
Yeah,
Boston.
yeah.
It's still there.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, and you walk across the Boston Common, or it's the Public Garden, I think. So it's right by the State House.
Very cool.
And in fact, my wife and I were crossing this like a week before.
Hmm.
A week before crossing the street at the right by Cheers. Um, that was the time where I asked Tony, well, maybe we want to move in together. And then she went dead silent.
Oh.
Now she remembers this as being, she remembers that conversation as her saying yes, but she definitely did not say yes. And
there,
then
there was a
a,
pause where
a
Matt like
whole
completely sweat.
a whole week goes by, and there's like no discussion of the topic.
Oh
Like,
no.
I'm thinking I have made the worst
You messed
mistake
up. Yeah,
ever.
you messed up a good thing.
Um, and then we're crossing the street, and midway across the street, she says, "I think you should move into my place, not me into your place." It's like, oh, that it's still on. Oh, okay,
Perfect.
yeah, whatever you say. Yep, I'm good with that. I'm good. Yep, okay,
Deal.
no problem. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you
I
poor
think you
thing.
should move from your 1,200 square foot apartment into my 700 square foot apartment. Yeah, okay, great.
Oh, that is so cool. You
Yeah,
poor thing. You
yeah,
must have been sweating
yeah,
bullets that entire time while you waited.
yeah, yeah.
It's funny because the first
Um,
episode of Cheers is similar to this, in that it's all about the waitress whose college
yeah,
prof said she wanted to go, or they wanted to go get married in Barbados, kind of thing.
right,
The
right.
entire episode is just her
Elaine, is
wedding.
it?
Oh, I've forgotten her name again. No, Elaine is Seinfeld. Oh
Oh,
shit,
Seinfeld, yeah.
I forgot the
Um,
character's name already. I'm
yeah,
so bad with names.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's such a great series, and it also reminds me of another series that happened a little bit before. It might be a long time before that, but some of the idea of it is very similar. Taxi. Did you
Oh
ever see any
yeah,
of Taxi?
that's all in a taxi station. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
that have like Robin Williams a long time ago as a taxi driver?
I don't
Oh, oh
know. I
no,
mean, there
no,
were
no! It had that comedian. My apologies. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that comedian. Yeah, that
That
narrows it down.
yeah, that comedian. Andy Kaufman.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes, who played like some worker from some country who happened to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
riding a taxi.
Really high voice, yeah.
Just made up a language. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Andy Kaufman.
Um,
Taxi was
yeah,
also brilliant. Or the
yeah.
other one is WKRP, but like
Oh yeah,
these older
yeah,
sitcoms that were primarily
yeah,
like one set basically the entire
yeah,
time, and then
yeah.
a lot of people talking over each other. But yeah,
Right,
I
right.
totally agree.
Yeah,
Totally agree.
yeah,
I miss those.
yeah.
What about yourself? What
Um,
recommendations do you have? What should we check out?
well, not a. Well, so one of the recommendations I have, I
Hmm.
mentioned this to you just before we started. I was watching a YouTube video by a guy named Scott Carney.
Okay.
Um, and about a week or two ago, he released a video, maybe it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, about AG1.
Right.
So AG1 is this nutritional supplement.
Yeah. Can we say
The
supposedly?
idea, well, the idea of supplements in the U.S. is that they are not regulated.
Oh.
And so you can basically say anything you want
Oh.
about that supplement, except this will, solve whatever
World
thing that
hunger.
you want to say it
Yeah.
solves. Anything else is fair game. And the founder of AG1 was a convicted felon who in Australia or New Zealand on a real estate scam, where he scammed a whole bunch of people out of money. And then what? At some point, he comes up with this idea of coming up with this supplement, um, but they kind of hide how much of everything is actually in the supplement,
Oh.
um, and it's there are lots of questions about how useful it actually is,
Like at all? If
but
there's any nutritional value?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But they do an amazing job of getting influencers to advertise, put on
Oh,
advertisements for
so kind of
them.
like Herbalife,
And
I guess, in
they,
the U.S. Because we don't have that here, but that's my
yeah, I
understanding.
think
Okay.
so.
Because they had like
Um,
they were sponsoring like a soccer team at some point in time as
oh,
well.
yeah.
Very interesting. Okay.
So Huberman, I think, pushes it, and a whole bunch of other big high-end podcasters. But like most of the YouTubers that I watch, all have an AG1 ad that shows up at some point.
Really?
And so, I mean, and if you, I mean, you get a pretty good, if you want to have AG1, you get, this pretty good free product if you just say it on your channel. Um,
Fascinating.
and so it's a very interesting video. About a week or 2 weeks after he puts out this video,
Hmm.
the CEO and founder of AG1 steps down
Oh.
unexpectedly.
Oh.
So that's interesting.
Okay.
There is that correlation, causation?
Spurious? Yeah, yeah,
We don't,
exactly. It's hard to
yeah.
say.
Um, but the most recent video is one about Joe Rogan, who
Okay.
I've never actually watched anything
I
that he does.
I unfortunately have. Um,
Apparently,
there's one about mushrooms that I definitely watched. Some person
oh
who
yeah,
said that mushrooms cured cancer, which
oh
was entertaining. But yes.
yeah. Well, apparently he is very much against big pharma
Okay.
and very much against the COVID vaccine
Okay.
in that it was rushed to develop and they don't know whether how what the efficacy of that is.
Sure.
And so he's kind of saying
Joe
this
Rogan,
is
medical
bad.
expert,
Yeah.
of course, yes, vaccine specialist.
But he and a friend, colleague created a company. This other guy, his dad created the Fleshlight,
Okay.
which
We're in all types of good territory today.
men
This video is
men
never gonna have
might
ads.
acquire
Yeah,
to
yeah, we got you.
replace the other
There are other
person
flashlights.
in the
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Um, and so he creates this like brain stimulate. No, he creates a anti-hangover drug
Okay.
supplement,
Okay.
and it goes nowhere.
Okay.
And then he comes like the last $20,000 he like tries to spend on this focus, this brain focus medication that will help you focus on
Okay.
stuff.
Your MMA fan.
And and he just comes, he's like talks to a bunch of friends and they figure it out and they just make this within a few months.
Okay.
Kind of the thing that Joe Rogan says he's totally against, but it's him and Joe Rogan that are coming up with this company.
It's different when it's yourself, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he sells it to, or they sell it to Unilever, and Unilever buys it for 400, 500,
So he's
800
now a big
million
pharma bro.
dollars.
Okay.
So he has been paid out by apparently, allegedly,
Yeah.
by and
Is this
so it's a
surprising?
very interesting story.
I don't know if this is surprising. I feel like
Um,
money talks a lot of the time. Like people
yeah.
have
Oh
values,
yeah.
but unfortunately, when money becomes involved,
Yeah.
the values can change. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah. I want to say I feel bad, but also he got a lot of money, so
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
sounds like he sold out.
The
Sold out on his values, but it doesn't matter because he got money.
The other thing that I found was very interesting that happened. Well, there's the Olympics.
Yes.
The Olympics are going on, and we on I guess on Friday we wanted to watch the opening ceremony, but we don't have. I think we have cable, and so we could have broadcast TV like NBC, whatever NBC is, here. But we don't have. I don't think I actually have the cable hooked up.
Right.
It's just we have it to internet. I mean that's all we care about with this
Mhm.
is internet. And so okay, we need to do some sort of streaming, and it turns out it's in the U.S. It's on Peacock, which is an NBC streaming service.
Right.
Um, and so we got that and had a hard time getting the opening ceremony because even though it was 12 hours later, it wasn't available until it was actually being broadcast in the
Oh,
US.
shoot.
And so you weren't allowed to see it until it shows up. But finally, it does show up, and then their
I was
app.
just looking to see if it's part of Paramount Plus because I thought it was, but apparently that was canceled.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
They the app on the Apple TV
Hmm.
is pretty amazing. I mean,
Oh,
you
really?
get this grid of all the different sports that are in the
Ooh,
Olympics. You can go
cool.
to any one of these items and then see highlights as well as replays of all the events
Awesome.
for that particular sport. And then fast forward through all the boring bits, and there's a lot of boring bits. Like all the medal ceremony, I don't care about that. Just give me the actual event.
Fair
Um,
enough.
and some of them, I mean, like some of these things are, I mean, okay, there's some things that are sports now that are kind of ridiculous. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of really fascinating things. Like, I mean, we watched a lot of the swimming, but then we also watched this slalom kayak thing,
That
which
sounds
was
kind of cool.
fascinating. And they have
So
to
they've
go
introduced
down
new
this
sports
simulated
this time.
river.
Okay. Yeah.
It sounds like this has been in there for like 2 or 3 times.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so but I've never seen it on
Me
TV
neither.
because you only had what was available. And so there's this simulated river, and then there's these gates that they have to go through, make sure they go through on their way down,
Oh, like a
and some of
video
them are
game. You
really
gotta hit
close to.
the checkpoints.
Yeah, and then some of them you go through straight through. Other ones you have to go back and go upstream into and then around,
Oh
but you
wow.
can't touch the bars. So it's fascinating.
Or presumably when you do hit the bars, there's like a
You
penalty. And
lose you have a 2 second penalty, and then if you
this
miss the
sounds
gate,
so difficult, having kayaked very poorly
oh my
before.
God, yeah. And this is fast moving water. And some of the if you miss the gate, then it's a 50-second penalty. So
Whoa.
like you're basically out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean, when they're on the other side, they're like huffing and puffing, trying to get into the gate. And then there's the other one for kayaking is the this where they just do a straightaway for X number of meters. And they've got like 6 people in their boats all ready to go, and they're ready at the gate, and the buzzer goes off, and one of them like digs in and just catches it wrong, and he flips over right at the beginning. And he
Oh
was from the Cook Islands, and so I mean, these guys come from the
yeah.
other side of the planet,
Oh.
and he's eliminated half a second in.
Oh, that's
Oh,
so sad. I'm laughing, but
um,
like also like
yeah.
that's awful.
Um, but there's the cycling, the mountain biking, and I mean there's all sorts of neat things that I would never have seen without this kind of.
Yeah, the mountain biking's relatively new too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen the Chloe Abrams thing, huge if true, about like the tech used in the Olympics this year, specifically
No.
running shoes, that kind of stuff? Okay, like,
Oh no.
another recommendation for a YouTube video. You
Yeah,
can tell all I do is watch YouTube.
yeah,
So the channel's called Huge if True, and what she's talking
yeah.
about is kind of there's a carbon fiber plate that's been added to a lot of shoes to allow them to bounce back
Mm.
higher, as well as a certain amount of foam that kind of
Mm-hmm.
interacts with it. This is a big deal when the person, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, was trying to do the 2 hour marathon, which they did eventually do in, I want to say prototype shoes. And because they were prototypes, there's now new laws or like
Mm-hmm.
competitive rules against these types of shoes as well.
Right.
But it was really cool to see her talk and maybe think about or reason live how like what should be bad and what shouldn't be. So like
Right.
for a long point in time in swimming, you weren't allowed to have goggles underwater. And when they introduced
Mm.
goggles, when they came around, a lot of records got broken. And then
Yeah.
it settled down for a while. And then recently with Phelps, a bunch of records got broken again.
Right.
And then it was the suit, apparently, like that shark
Right.
fin suit thing
Yeah.
that he had worn or some other people had worn as well. And then apparently that is no longer allowed, but the goggles are still allowed, even though like a bunch
Yeah.
of records get broken. It's very interesting to see like where the letter of the law, or like where the rule makers
Right.
come down on what is too much an advantage and what isn't. So
Yeah.
apparently you can only have one carbon fiber plate, and I think it's a
Mm.
max of like 2 inches of foam under the shoe or something like that. But
Okay.
it's really cool. She visited Nike. They cut a
Oh.
shoe in half. She did some running on the
Right.
machine. That kind of stuff is pretty sweet. But
Wow.
I thought that was really interesting to think about our technological
Yeah.
advancement and what they're calling tech doping. So it's not doping,
Mm.
but the tech is giving you an
Yeah.
unfair advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe one country has more money in this program,
Right.
and as a result, they can do more research, or perhaps the
Right.
person's from Portland and right next door to Nike, so they get access to
Yeah.
who knows what. But I find that tech advancement is interesting. The other example
Mm-hmm.
they had was for precision shooting. If your eyes aren't great, perhaps you may need to wear glasses. And maybe
Right.
glasses are okay, but are you overcorrecting your glasses to
Yeah.
make your vision a little bit better? So it's like 30/20 or something like that, so you
Yeah.
can see better. It's a slippery slope,
Yeah.
but it's fun to kind of think about. It's like a
Wow.
good
Yeah.
mental exercise to think about what's cool and what's
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Well, regarding Phelps,
Yes.
one of the swimming events that we watched, um, no, well, all the swimming events, they're all pretty much all the people are within like hundreds of a millisecond or
Wow.
hundreds of a second to each other. You know, point
Okay.
zero. I mean, many of them lost the like bronze by like 0.01 seconds from
Wow.
touching the thing at the end. So I mean, so such this tiny little
And they're all in the
and
same pool at once,
everybody
right? There's a ton of
they're all in the
turbulence in the
same
water.
pool.
Like it's
Yeah,
very
there's
interesting.
turbulence and pretty much all of them are all finishing within, within a second of each other. They're all really good. And there's this one event where the person in front, I can't remember he might have been from France or
Okay.
I don't know where he was from, but I mean he was like five lengths of 5 humans in front of the next closest person. He was
Wow.
so far ahead, and he broke the record that Phelps had set.
Oh, wow,
Um,
that's cool.
yeah,
Wow. I wonder what the
not
tech
a
is.
world record, but the Olympic record
The
for that
Olympic
Phelps
record.
did.
Very interesting. The other example
It was
was like
fascinating.
flippers. If
Yes.
flippers can help, why can't
Oh,
flippers be?
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? I'm sorry. I find
right,
this topic very, very interesting. It's like
yeah,
how tech affects life, I guess, is maybe
yeah,
the niche
yeah.
that's interesting to me.
Well, one other bit of drama
Hmm.
related to the Olympics was apparently I still haven't seen the opening ceremony. We got
I,
the
I
channel
watched
to
the
watch
metal
it.
band open Gojira. That was amazing.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
all I've
saw
seen.
like a clip of that with they were all on the side of a building or
It was
something.
pretty hardcore. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. But apparently at some point there was this act with a bunch of drag queens, and they were doing I don't even know what the thing was that they were
Mhm.
doing, but they were lined up behind a table or
Oh,
some
there's a
structure,
controversy about the Last Supper as opposed to the Greek.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so and then there's this guy in front, and so people are up in arms, and
Mm.
apparently people are still watching Andrew Tate, and he was saying, "Oh, this is horrible." Like, okay, and they're saying because it's well, obviously it's the Last Supper, and then this guy in front or this person in front is this other thing that's also offensive because of something else,
Who knows?
and then the people that create it's like that's the wrong painting. It's not based on the Last Supper. It's based on this Greek Greek
Yes.
gods thing,
Yes.
and
Specifically
all
Olympic.
the all the elements of the event were in that one painting.
Right.
It's not like cherry picked from
Right.
other paintings to be offensive. No, it was from something else. You got it
Yeah.
wrong.
People like the outrage culture, I guess.
Ugh. Yeah, yeah,
Which, like, listen, sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. My
sure.
understanding is this time it was not warranted at all.
No, no.
Ah.
So people are very upset, boycotting the Olympics for nothing. Another Bud Light.
People gonna peep,
Yep,
unfortunately.
yep, yeah.
Should we, on that bombshell, should we
Um,
find the end stream button?
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think there's any other things to. No,
He's
no, I
run out of
think that's
content,
it. Yeah,
folks. All right. Well, thank you very much
yeah.
in the chat. I realize it
Thank
was a
you.
slower week, but yeah, thank you for the
It
comments, all
was.
the emojis.
Yeah. I mean, so I was wondering, well, maybe my chat window isn't updated. That's
I
all
had
it
open the side
was. A
notification.
bunch of
Just emojis,
waves
yeah.
and yeah,
All
emojis.
right.
All right, let's find the end stream button. Well, should I end it on? I'll end it on YouTube first. End stream. End.